I'm pleased that you can all join me today as I welcome David Baird to discuss the newer concept of Scoreboard Soccer. The mic should be off as you've come in, but if you have your mic on for any reason, we'd kindly ask if it was off. Also, for videos in his presentation, we would also ask that your cameras would be off as well. So he might be, David might be able to ask you politely when the videos are coming on, just so they run a little bit more smoother. Just a reminder, you can find us on Twitter at Youth Soccer Coaches, Facebook at Youth Soccer Coaches, and our website www.youthsoccercoaches.com. Before I hand over to David, I just want to mention next week, slightly later time of 8 p.m. in GMT and 2 p.m. CST. We are excited to be joined by Thomas Gronimark, a freelance throwing coach for clubs such as Liverpool and Ajax, to discuss how to win a soccer match with a throw-in. I will put the sign-up link in the chat shortly. So David is a current UEFA A licensed candidate with over 15 years experience in coaching, including spells in the United Arab Emirates, the United States. David has also written multiple coaching resources, including Future Feet and Practice Through Play. Please, any questions that you have can be directed to me or in the group chat as the presentation goes, and we will come back to them shortly. I'll now hand over to David, who will take through his presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig, and thanks everyone for giving up your evening for this presentation today. I hope you find it useful. And you know, I've done a few of these now, and one of my favourite things is sometimes it opens up a bit of networking and a bit of conversation. I hope you guys take something from it, but I would love to take something from it as well, if that's a bit of feedback or just touching base with some coaches, and we can keep in touch after this. I would really appreciate that as well. So hopefully there's some value to the presentation. I'll just share my screen at the moment and make sure all the technology is working okay. So as Craig says, my name's David Baird, and today I'm going to talk about Scoreboard Soccer. Now, Scoreboard Soccer, I think first of all, was just maybe painting a picture of where I use Scoreboard Soccer, and then throughout the course of the presentation, we can delve a little bit deeper into why and where it might fit within, you know, your teams, your programs, and your clubs, and how you might use it. I think it's really crucial when we're coaching any players, or we're, you know, coaching any programs, schools program, you know, amateur teams, professional players, girls, women's, whatever it may be. We try and identify their age and stage, and that's what I kind of try and do on a very basic basis. I try and look at the players in front of me and decide, do they need to develop a love for football? Do they need to play football, or have they got the tools to learn football? And this is just to paint the picture that, you know, with the 2, 3, 4-year-olds, Scoreboard Soccer is maybe not the place for it. I use Scoreboard Soccer within that kind of middle step of development. This is a real basic basis, because I don't want to keep you all night. This presentation should be somewhere between 30 minutes and 45 minutes. We could have a deeper dive into this longer term development, and some questions might come from you guys at the end in regards to this longer term model. But today we're here to talk about that kind of middle section of when I've maybe identified a group that need to play more football. And I know you've had speakers on, and you know, there'll be a lot of good knowledge within the room on the benefits of a games-based approach, the importance of a games-based approach, and for me it's absolutely vital. Obviously, you know, street football and things like this have maybe diminished in the natural environment, so we need to build it in to what we're delivering now. We need to build in a good basis of playing football. And to be honest, and maybe this is just my vision of coaching and my experiences, I think it's the one that's been neglected for a long time now, and luckily I see loads of great stuff out there about a games-based approach now. But in my experience, you know, I'm based in Scotland, and I've worked across the country in different programs. We're great at developing a love for football. We've got our role models on TV. It's built into the culture. People are out at the back gardens with their kids at a young age. Our kind of footy tots and mini kickers programs, our multi-sports programs. are great fun, and kids, they develop a very strong love for football in this country. But then they sign up for a team, or they go up an age group, or they go to the next program, and all of a sudden there's a coach right in there with 2 feet, trying to teach them football, trying to playing out from the back, switch and play, develop the weaker foot, develop technique. And I'm just kind of saying, in my opinion, we've not even seen what they can do yet. We've not even had a good look at, how far can they take themselves, how much can they problem solve, how much can they, learn by doing. And that will probably shape our thinking on what we maybe need to teach them. So I'm a big fan that players need a good basis of actually playing the game. Now, I've had many roles across 15 or 16 years coaching now, and some of them revolve around academy football and trials and recruitment. And I can say from experience, it's my opinion and the opinion of a lot of coaches who have been involved in trials previously. A young boy or girl comes into the academy, wants to sign up for the team. It's a team in the region or the country or whatever that everyone wants to play for. They don't make it. You say to mum or dad, okay, this is the feedback. And the mum or dad are desperate to know, do they need to work on their weaker foot? Is it scanning? Do they need to strike the ball cleaner? And in my opinion, and as I say, the opinion of some well-respected coaches I know within the game, sometimes it boils down to they've just not played enough football. They've just not played enough football within their kind of footballing journey. You think about, and obviously I'm referencing Scotland and years gone by, your Kenny Dalgliishs and your Archie Gemmels, and the amount of street football these guys might have played all day, every day. So when they came to training, their knowledge could get topped up. They were well equipped to then learn the intricacies of the game. But we maybe need to build that within our programs. I know you've had a lot of, I won't spend too long on this because I know you've had previous speakers on a games-based approach and things like this. And of course you say to the mum or dad or the parent or guardian, they've just not played enough football, and they come back and say, well, I take them to private lessons, one-on-one lessons 5 times a week. And I say, well, that's 5 times a week that they're not playing football. They're not doing things with opposition, with direction, with transitions, with the picture always changing and chaos. And again, storybook soccer, strategy soccer, these are other curriculums that I've got. These can be other webinars, and one-to-one coaching can be another webinar as well, because there is a place for it, etc., etc. It's part of a balanced diet when it comes to developing a footballer. But for me, all those kind of block practices, passing off a wall, 1v1 lessons, they need to be to supplement going and taking that into a game and playing the chaotic game that we all love. So hopefully that just maybe paints a picture on where Scoreboard Soccer sits. Now, I still work within the younger age groups, 3, 4, 5 adult and children classes, and I do some Scoreboard Soccer into there. It's just a wee bit less advanced, which I can show how we can adapt our sessions, because I'm kind of trying to bridge that gap from Storybook Soccer to Scoreboard Soccer. There's an overlap there. And I also coach a talented under-20s team, and I do some Scoreboard Soccer there because there's a place for it in there as well. So I'm fully aware that once I show you what Scoreboard Soccer is and the benefits, we might come full circle at the end and have some questions. I coach a decent men's under-19s team. How would you adapt it to use it here? So hopefully this paints a picture of where I see it sitting in a longer-term development program. But what I would say as well, within that longer-term development program, I'm still doing all-in small-sided games. I'm still doing rondos, warm-ups, condition games, phases of play, patterns of play. I'm not going to be saying to you today, Scoreboard Soccer is a be-all and end-all, throw everything else out the window. All I'm saying to you today is I'm showing a method of how I coach, and hopefully I've not wasted your time tonight. You can find somewhere that it might fit within your practice. But we'll come around to all that, and hopefully I've not confused you too much on the very first slide. So I'm just going to try and make it just a little bit interactive. Hopefully everyone's kind of familiar with where the chat function is. I'm just going to ask one real quick question, and then depending on what we get on the chat might depend where I pitch the rest of this presentation. So, right, get your coach's brain on and think in the chat, what are the potential dangers of instruction? What are the potential dangers of you telling players what to do? And I'd be really interested to see some of the stuff we might come up with. If everyone can just put maybe 1 or 2 or, however much you want to expand, that's fine. And it's a very open-ended question. I appreciate that. What are the potential dangers of instruction? Okay, let's have a wee look at what comes through. So decision-making skills. Now, Stephen Cowan, I'm not sure if you're comfortable unmuting yourself and expanding on that. There's no pressure, but I'd love to hear what you mean by lack of decision-making.
it goes back to what you were talking about, 1v1 training versus the chaos of a full game. So you're under pressure. Where are you going to put the ball? Are you going to dribble it? Are you going to pass it? Is there a long ball on? Do you have to pass back? If you're just telling the kid what to do all the time, it's like Jose Mourinho saying that he was in Luke Shaw's brain. So it's...
Yeah, and that's spot on as well. If we're giving them the answers, then they're not learning. They need to engage their brain. And for some reason, we've appreciated this for years in other walks in life. Education, for example, the teacher doesn't just say 10 plus 10 is 20. Like, now you know that. That goes in one year, out the other. There's no fun, there's no engagement, there's no excitement. What the teacher will do is they'll give you, if Sarah has 50 pence and she spends 10p in a chocolate bar, how much does she have left? They'll move the plastic coins around, they'll engage the brain, they'll have ownership of the learning. So yeah, we need to let them make the decisions, and then through trial or error, their decision making will improve. Yeah, they need to decide what they're doing in the game as well. And what if that player takes everything I say as gospel, and then their dad gets a job in a different part of the country, they move, and then they don't know how to play any other way apart from what David Baird taught them. And I always say, if every player I taught took everything I said as gospel, they'd only ever grow up to be as good as me, and I wouldn't wish that on anyone. So we want these players to surpass our skill set. Alan Murphy, I like yours around the lack of clarity. What are we talking about there?
I think it's dealing with different levels, players at different levels, and when you've gone through your coaching course and wherever else, you know, if you don't pitch it, if you're not able to relate to the players, you've lost them from the start.
Yeah, you got to relate to the players. Clarity, relating to the players, we need to speak their language, depending on the generation. If you're working with under 10s and under 12s right now or whatever, we can't be referencing the game from the 1980s and the 1990s to kids that are going to play the game in 2030, 2040. You know, particularly with how quickly the game's evolving, with things like technology coming in. You know, I had to rewrite all my curriculums as little as, 2 years ago, when the fullbacks could come inside the box at goal kicks. So we can't predict the future, so we can't teach them the game that we don't know how it's going to look. Hopefully that kind of ties into to what Alan's saying. And lack of clarity, I'll never forget watching a training game. Ball came out to a young girl and the coach shouted, "Pick it up and run with it." And she picked it up in her hands and started running with the ball. So what we say, it might be misheard or it might be misunderstood. Or I'll give you another one that's a potential danger of instruction. They might not be listening to you. Now, whether that's because they're a bad person, it's probably more likely that they're just in that moment and they're looking at something else or concentrating on something else and they don't hear you. So there's a danger of instruction as well. Matthew, you're saying information overload. We'll maybe just pick one or two more, but I think that's a great one. What are we talking about there, Matthew? Information overload.
So particularly with academy players and so on, you don't want to give them too much information because they don't have the time to process that information, especially at an younger age.
Yeah, brilliant. I think there's loads. And sorry if I'm picking you up wrong, Matthew, but you've written information overload, and I've just started to think of loads of things that can mean. Yeah, in academy, good level players, you shout some information. By the time they process it, have a scan, see what you're doing, the picture's changed, hasn't it? Because the game's happening so quickly. But yeah, they can only take in a certain amount of information and a certain amount of bullet points. If you're giving them too much information, and I think that ties into the idea, another potential danger of instruction, it might be kind of boring. It might slow the tempo of your sessions. I know we all like to think that we're kind of hip and trendy, but you know, we're older adults in a position of authority. It might become a little bit boring if we're... I love Matthew's one of information overload, because the first thing I think of, unfortunately, I've got some really clear examples of this in my head of coaches that I know. I'm wondering the why behind the information, and unfortunately I think so much of it comes down to being a little bit egotistic. You know, it's very trendy to be a coach these days, with Pep Guardiola on Amazon Prime and Jose Mourinho on YouTube and Gary Neville on Monday Night Football. It's really cool and trendy to be a coach. I think if I see a pitch of 15 players and one coach and it's a coach's voice I hear all the time, I think there's something really wrong there, to be honest. Yeah, always looking for coaches' instructions, Oliver's talking about. So this kind of idea of joystick coaching, you know, pass, dribble or shoot, confusing players, giving them ambivalence. You know, they've got the ball and they want to dribble. Their teammates are shouting pass. The coach is shouting turn and keep possession. They get in the car and Mama Beth says, "Why didn't you shoot?" And that's not a fun environment. That's a confusing environment for players. Taking away creativity, Lee's talking about, taking away problem solving. Yeah, guys, we've got loads there. So I think there's a lot of potential dangers of instruction. I'll tell you one that's crucial for me as well. I'm just looking at my list when I do this wee exercise. Maybe one that we haven't got yet. It's human nature to be defensive as well. I think when we tell players to do something or we instruct something because we've seen something and we're trying to correct it, it's human nature to be defensive. They probably have a justification for why they did that in the first place, you know. So if I take it down to a really basic level with the younger players and we're saying you must strike the ball with your laces, and they're thinking, well, I've scored 10 goals on my big foot, my big toe, you know. They're probably having this internal dialogue. Whether they verbalize it and talk back to you, probably not. They're probably thinking, you know, this is why I've done it, kind of thing. We need to watch that instruction as well of what we're saying being wrong. You know, you don't know what you don't know. I look back when I first started coaching, and I need to hold my hand up and say, and I probably still do so many players a disservice because I think I know it all and I want to impart this knowledge. And obviously, in some regards, there's nothing wrong with that. But you know, you look back to dated coaching, you must pass the ball with the inside of your foot. Like, well, do you? You know, back heels and soul rolls. And I've seen Ronaldinho pass the ball with his back once. Unbelievable. Ball came from a goal kick and he turned around and he backed it to someone else. And maybe an instruction-based coach of an older school of thinking is saying, you know, take it on the chest, get it on the floor, pass with the inside of your foot. By the time Ronaldinho's done that, Sergio Ramos has nailed him. You know, so I think we need to just take a wee step back, embrace creativity, and let these players evolve the game. You know, because if they take everything we say as gospel, the game will never move on. We didn't see a Cruyff turn until like 1974. The players that we're working with, and I know I'm pitching at a lot of the younger players, or maybe come on to the older ones later, they're going to evolve the game. And I love this idea of Cruyff getting interviewed, whether this is fake news or not. I'll need to fact check this, and someone asking him, you know, how often do you practice that skill before you took it in a game? And he said it wasn't a skill, it was a solution. Like, I was playing a game of football and there was a defender, there was a goal, and this is what I came up with. So we need to take a step back and let these kids evolve the game, let them be creative, let them solve their own problems. But coming back to the one about it being human nature to be defensive. So 15 years of coaching, UEFA licence candidate, working across loads of programmes, that's only part of my journey. As many of you will know, you know, you kind of coach evenings and weekends, you volunteer, and you have a kind of 9 to 5. Now, my 9 to 5 for a number of years was on kind of behaviour change and trying to spark a realisation or spark some motivation in people to do something, which is the way I kind of see coaching. We're trying to spark motivation in people to do something, you know, whatever that thing may be. And I think back to some of the consultations I had with people that, for example, they were trying to give up smoking. That's what they were trying to do. And if you came into that space and you were to say instruction-based approach, you should give up smoking because it's bad for your health, it increases heart disease, you can harm people through passive smoking, they'll have a justification of why they do it. They'll say, but I've done it for years, all my mates do it, it helps me in social situations, it helps my anxiety, blah, blah, blah. They come back with a justification. So you might know where you want to take your players. I might know where I want to take that individual, you know, stop them smoking, but we need to direct them there in a clever way. And I know we talk about Q&A and guided discovery, you know, what do you think the benefits would be if you stop smoking? And then they come back with, well, I guess I'd save a bit of money, the place wouldn't smell as bad, I could run around with the grandkids, I could play football at the back garden with my children. And then they leave that environment and they're thinking, I've just been telling myself for an hour I should quit smoking. It's a much stronger form of motivation if that person's involved in the process and involved in decision making, which we're going to come on to when I eventually stop rambling and we get into Scoreboard Soccer. But one of the strongest things, and I'm just giving you some background on where Scoreboard Soccer came from, for me, the first thing we need to do, particularly with young players in that, you know, play the game space, we need to take instruction down and we need to ramp the environment right up. You know, we know what we want to get from them. You have your own values and your own ideas and your own themes within your sessions. We know what we want to get from them, but we need to change the environment to model those behaviours. And it's been happening subconsciously around us for years. You know, we drive in the certain part of the road because the environment of white lines tells us to. We stop at red lights. You know, big supermarkets put milk up the back, so we need to walk by loads of stuff we don't need just to get the milk. We need to manipulate the environment to get those behaviours. And sometimes we need to change the environment subconsciously, whether you realise it or not. 5 to 10 years ago, people were leaving their bank cards and ATM machines. They changed the environment. You now need to take your card out before the money comes. Whether you guys on the call recognise that or not, that was a change to the environment that got the behaviour from you that the powers that be wanted. They wanted you to stop leaving your cards in bank machines. So I try and take this parallel from the real world into my coaching. And if I was just to very quickly circle back to the smoking one, yes, we can Q&A and guided discovery every single player on the pitch, but that becomes a kind of instruction-based environment as well, doesn't it? So what we did in the smoking one, and Scotland were world leaders in this, we changed the environment. We made it illegal to smoke indoors. We made it illegal to advertise on cigarettes, and we hid them from behind the counters. And the rates dropped because the environment that was created in this country, and other people have followed suit, made it harder to display those behaviours. I bet you a lot of you didn't come on tonight thinking I was going to talk you into stop smoking. If anyone does, by the way, then shoot me a little message and that would be great. But this is the parallel that I'm trying to take into coaching. Imagine an instruction-based approach where you have a group of players and you're trying to instruct them to jump up and down. Bend your knees, jump higher, jump, jump, jump. Who can jump the highest? Keep going, come on, hour-long session. How long realistically could you keep them engaged in a jumping session? For me, you build that environment. And that's what the scoreboard soccer games are. They're an environment. Within the picture on the screen there, they'll be jumping, there'll be hidden fitness, there'll be competition, who can jump the highest. They probably don't want to leave that environment, which is what I try and do at football training. Don't want them to leave. Try and make it fun enough. There'll be creativity, there'll be backflips, there'll be front flips, there'll be a bit of resilience. Some of them will bang into each other, fall over, did they get back up, build character. So trying to take those parallel into coaching football. So let's have a little look at scoreboard soccer then. So for me, the environment, as I've just spoke about, and you'll have your own basis of what environment am I trying to create, what values, and what's important to me as a coach, what's important to us as a club, etc., etc. But for me, the environment I'm trying to embrace is I want to design something that's fun. I always put the person before the player because they're people before they're football players. And then I want to develop the player. You know, I want to make them as good players as I can. Now, I know that some people in some walks of football might put the player before the person. It probably took me too long to get there, but I realised the more you invest in the player, you get the person, you get so much more from the player, so much more. If they see you, if you see them as commodities to win you football matches, and the second you find a better player or they get an injury, you're not going to care about them. They're not going to give you everything. I'm talking in a team respect here, obviously, but I like working with people. That's why in my previous job, I'm talking about, you know, trying to help behaviour change and help people with positive habits. I like people. That's why I do what I do. So I know when the players' birthdays are. I know what school they go to. I ask them how their mums and dads are. I ask them what they've been up to. What did you think of the game last night? And it's, you know, it's not a front. And if you think, oh, I'm not that way inclined, so I'm never going to be a good coach, then obviously that's fixed mindset. You can become, you know, more engaged in people, which might be another webinar as well. But I think the more engaged you are as people, the more you get from them as players. You know, they talk about Sir Alex Ferguson and how players would run through a brick wall for him. You know, they don't just show up one day and think, I'll just run through a brick wall for this guy. You know, it's because of that relationships that builds with the players. So that's something I want to do at Scoreboard Soccer. I want an environment where first and foremost, I think football should always be about fun, person, then player. I know the behaviours that I want to see. Now, that list could be exhaustive, right? But let's say you're planning something or you want to see some passing and moving, spreading out for the younger players, something a bit more tactical for the older players, creativity, resilience, teamwork. So this is me coming to design an environment and show you where Scoreboard Soccer came from before I essentially just send you all the content and look for your feedback. But I want to knock down these barriers as well. So see for the first two, I think a games-based approach kind of ticks those boxes. I think we can have loads of fun. We can build relationship with people, and we can develop them as players if we just play 5-a-sides or 4-a-sides or small-sided games. I think you'll get all of these things because that's the nature of football. You know, all of these things are involved in it. I really bought into a games-based approach, you know, 4 or 5 years ago. I really bought into it. But then I thought there was these barriers. If I just... And it was a culture change, wasn't it? Everyone's saying, just play the game, let them play. And this is just my opinion. You know, I know people will disagree with it. But I found in a lot of my programs and teams, and I work across a big spectrum of football. I don't just work with top players. I found when I just played the game, these were the barriers that I came up with. Some players not getting involved because, you know what? They weren't there because they loved football. The kids who love football and we just play a game, that's fine. Some of them are there because they were trying to decide if they love football. And if they come into that environment and we just play 5v5 and they don't get a touch of the ball and they're apprehensive about getting on the ball because they don't know what way to shoot or what to do with it, that's not a great environment. You know, concentration levels, you know, an hour and a half of just playing the game. I did see a drop off in some of the players. Mixed ability levels. So guys, if you're sitting on the call and you're thinking, you know, I want to improve the engagement of my players, I struggle to cater for mixed ability levels. I struggle to get them to concentrate. I struggle to get them passing, moving, dribbling. And Scoreboard Soccer might be something to look into. And of course, I would say that because this is my baby and my presentation. But hopefully, you can take it and go and give it a go. So I was just doing a games-based approach, but I came across those barriers. So this is where Scoreboard Soccer came from. This is one of the first scoreboard games that we done. So we're playing a game of 3v3. We're playing a game of 3v3, and I'm watching and I'm seeing that, you know, young lad or a young girl that every time they get the ball, they can dribble by everyone and score. You know, everyone's telling me just let them play a games-based approach. And I've got someone that just dribbles by everyone and scores. Now, another team get the ball, they try and build out, and they win the ball and they go and score. Because there's a very obvious gap in ability levels. Now, I'm not one to get that player to pass, to be honest. I'm not one to tell a young player, you must play two-touch or you must pass the ball before we score, because we're not going to develop the next Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, Maradona, Pele, Cruyff, George Best, you know, pick any best player ever if we're telling them always to pass the ball. We learn to pass, dribble and shoot by pass, dribble and shoot. In my opinion, you learn to take on 5 players by going and taking on 5 players throughout your whole life. Trial and error, you know, learn by doing. Doesn't matter if you give it away. I would praise the fact that they get on the ball and they try and dribble again. I love greedy players. I think they're great. I don't know why a player who dribbles but doesn't pass gets a much harder time than the player who passes but doesn't dribble. And maybe that's a wee bit of gold dust to take away from some of you. If you do shout pass and pass, go and get on at the players who always pass. Because I maintain that when that player who always dribbles gets to 15 or 16, you can get them to pass the ball a little bit more. That player who passes a lot, and when they get to 15, 16, they probably can't learn to take on 5 or 6 players. So it might be a personal thing. I'm sure there's a lot of coaches that agree. There's a lot of coaches that maybe disagree. I'm not one to tell players they must pass. They must pass the ball. However, I need to think of a smart way to kind of share this ball, and I've got a duty of development to all of them. So what I did was, you know, when Stephen dribbles by everybody and scores, instead of complaining about it and asking him to pass, I flipped that on his head and I praised it. And I said, Stephen, that is a great dribble. Come over to the scoreboard and put a point on for your team. So we'll just kind of watch this through. You know, it's yellow against red. And when you score, you come put a ball on the cone. Don't ask me why, but I was going to say younger players, but, you know, I've played this game and I love it because by human nature, we're defensive, we're competitive. They love putting a ball on the cone. It's just you know, a little visual representation and a pat on the back from their coach that they've did something great. You know, come and put a ball on the cone. Obviously, what that player doesn't recognise is I've kind of thought of a hidden, clever way to just momentarily get them off the pitch by praising them and by saying, well done, go put a ball on the cone. And then that dribbler still wants to come and dribble again because that's what I've praised and that's what I want to keep getting out of them. But then I kind of started to think, and then, you know, I'm talking over, I've lived this for 5 or 6 years, so it did grow arms and legs, and I'll try not to keep you all night, but, you know, why are we just praising the good players? We've got a duty of development to all of them. So it became a very individualised program, Scoreboard Soccer, where if I've been working with Alan, you know, to pass the ball a bit firmer and he passes it a bit firmer, whether it goes where it was supposed to or not, I'm saying, Alan, brilliant, come over to the scoreboard, put a point on the cone. And I can tell you from experience, Alan comes back onto the pitch, desperate to get on the ball and desperate to try and do it again. You know, I'll say to, you know, Sarah, oh, I love that you tried to take someone on, come over to the scoreboard. And whatever, again, you guys are the coaches, listen, you'll have your own behaviours, you'll have your own players that you've been working on X, Y, or Z with. But this is a games-based approach where it becomes quite individualised because you can praise them in regards to their ability level and what you've been working on with them and what you value as a group, you know, if that's passing and moving or scanning or spreading out or holding a shape. Whatever behaviours you want to see within the game, you can use the scoreboard to praise that. One thing that I'm massive on is praising the process, particularly for youth players. So if Craig runs back 20 yards to make a tackle but misses the tackle, I might still say, Craig, I love that, come to the scoreboard. Because if Craig realises that effort is what I value, effort's what he's going to keep giving me, and then the outcomes are going to get a little bit better. So you can use it to praise the process. This particular game, the players, again, I'm including myself in this because I've played it before, they like the progression. You can put a ball on your team's cone, or you can just run over and kick a ball off the other team's cone. So it's still a games-based approach, and it's still competitive. And I can tell you the engagement and the work rate and the effort and the standard of the game, when it's the yellows have 3 footballs on their cone and they only need 1 more, and if we score the next goal, we get to go kick 1 off. It comes down to that element of fun. So again, I'm happy to send these out via Craig. You can send them to everyone, but we've got all these different scoreboards. Bananas and strawberries is quite similar to Connect 4. It's really good fun. But then we started to think, well, why can't the scoreboard be a little bit of practice as well? You know, so some of them are, you know, passing, dribbling, shooting. This one here is based on the kind of weight of pass. So the black team have their scoreboard, the green team have their scoreboard. There's an odd number of footballs at the side. When you score a goal or you do something that the coach says well done and praises come to the side, you try and weigh the pass into your scoreboard. So there's an element of working on your weight of pass over there. And listen, if a player goes over and their technique's all off, or you think they need a wee bit of guidance, you can coach that player at the scoreboard. It's another one that generates a lot of excitement. The range of passes always increase or decrease because if the ball doesn't land within the scoreboard, that point is kind of still up for grabs. So the 2 there that are sitting outside the scoreboard, someone can still go and try and kind of tap them into their scoreboard. So yeah, the scoreboard itself can be some individualized technical practice. If anyone does work with the younger players, and good segue into the webinar next week, and you know, throw-ins is something that they maybe need to work on. You know, a game of football and the scoreboard is, you know, a throw-in challenge. If the ball bounces within the box, that's a point. So if the game was 4-4 and this young lad bounces it in, that's now 5-4 to his team. Of course, you don't give the point if the foot comes off the ground or they don't release it above their head, whatever it may be. But again, you can spend some time at that scoreboard and you can work on, you know, 99% of your players are getting a games-based approach, and one of them's getting a little bit of throw-in practice / support. So I'm sure we have a lot of footballers in the room, a lot of people that enjoy football. You know, how much would you enjoy a game of football that's just 5-a-sides, but you get a bonus point with the crossbar challenge running parallel? And again, I can say from experience, the kids all want a wee shot at the crossbar challenge. They all want a wee shot to beat the goalie, pass and try and knock the ball off the cone. So they try and display the behaviours that they know you're going to praise. Well, that will be passing, dribbling, shooting, effort. Again, that's totally down to you guys as the coaches. So hopefully I've given you a good little overview of what Scoreboard Soccer is. Happy to send out the games, ones that are a little bit more fun-based, ones that are a bit more technical-based, and then ones that are maybe a little bit more advanced, where the scoreboards are things like, right, I'm going to pull Matthew out to work on his 1v1 defending. I'm going to create a box of 10 by 15, put Matthew in it, and the scoreboard is actually try and dribble by Matthew. So he gets non-stop, like 1v1 practice, if that kind of makes sense. If someone gets by him, their team gets a point, and I can give him a bit of feedback. If he tackles them, their team doesn't get a point, and I can say, yeah, that's what I was talking about, you know, side on, and don't dive in, and whatever it might be. I've got other scoreboards where if you are working with the slightly older ones, you know, you take Alan to the side, you give him a bag of footballs at the corner flag, and he's just whipping crosses in. You know, he's the scoreboard. Everyone else is playing 5v5. You're saying, David, well done, go to the scoreboard. I make a run in the box. Alan crosses it. If I finish it, it's a point for my team. So I'm probably getting a wee bit carried away. I'm delving a wee bit deeper into it than I probably wanted to, because it's just to give you guys an idea, and then if there's a place for it, great. If there's not, then I apologise for wasting your time this evening, but maybe you can adapt it. And then this is the final thing. I'm saying instruction down, environment up. But see, once you have the environment right, I'm not making coaches obsolete, obviously not. You know, you've got experience, you are coaches, you've got knowledge. Then add that into the environment to further enhance the learning. So this is one of the biggest things for me in Scoreboard Soccer. These are the situations that are being recreated constantly within these games. So there's a player who scored a goal, for example. Obviously, it might just be they're getting praised, but they score a goal. They run over to do a beat the goalie, so they get a wee bit of individual, they get to work on their penalties, or, you know, I do one where you line up a line of mannequins and put a goalie in, and it's free kick practice, you know, for a bonus point. So they're over there at the scoreboard trying to get a bonus point. Now look at the picture on the pitch, you know, you've got attacking overloads, counter-attacks, defending outnumbered, 3 defenders trying to slow down an attack of 4 until their teammate can get back from the scoreboard. You've got recovery runs back from the scoreboard. You've got all this hidden learning within it. Now, again, I would encourage, depends on your players and the level they're playing at, I would encourage environment down, and this all kind of comes out in the wash. You know, they're just always exposed to this, and then with trial and error and all the things we spoke about at the start, they get better at it. But if you're watching, and for example, one of the situations I had, right, it's 4v3, all 4 of them have bombed forward, they've lost the ball, the group of 3 have passed it into the player coming back from the scoreboard, and they've conceded again. Right, I wonder if they will, you know, problem solve that. I wonder if that'll happen again. We all hate it as players when you make one mistake and the coach says, right, everyone freeze, and you tell a player they made a mistake when they're like, well, I know I made a mistake, obviously. So let them do it. If that happens 4 or 5 times, you've now probably, using your observation skills, you've probably identified as a coach, right, guys, just freeze it there a wee second. Right, look at the situation here. It's 4 against 3. Okay, we need to get wide, we need to play quick, and we need to try and get a quick solution because this 4v3 is not going to last very long. You might use a wee bit of Q&A within that scenario as well. But you might go in and teach a wee bit of balance and depth, and somebody sit and just make sure we don't get hit on the counter, and scan and watch that player come back from the scoreboard, and where is he or she going to run in behind you and behind the shoulder? Where are they going to come when they come back onto the pitch? So there's quite a lot of coaching in it as well. So these are the scenarios that we get kind of constantly within Scoreboard Soccer, and this is the absolute top level a couple of weeks ago. So we're trying to expose if it is young players, again, we can have a discussion around where it would fit for older players in regards to pre-season, small-sided games, etc. We're trying to expose them to as many of these situations as possible because this is the game, isn't it? Attacking overloads, defending outnumbered, delaying, winning the ball, 1v2s, 2v3s, 3v4s, whatever it may be. So just to kind of summarise, I think I'm getting to the end towards of my presentation now. So Scoreboard Soccer, it's all about developing the players through play and praise. I got a really nice quote on Scoreboard Soccer from a coach that I really respect who went and put it on the pitch. And what he said he loves about it is, as coaches, we have a habit of always trying to catch players off it. This catches them on it. You know, how guilty are we as coaches of seeing, like, what went wrong? What did someone do wrong so I can step in and coach who made a bad pass, who didn't scan, who didn't give an option, who didn't give passing lanes. Whereas this just might be a wee bit different. Some of you probably do loads of this kind of stuff anyway, but you're looking for what they do well and you're praising what they do well. And it's praise, praise, praise. And now, listen, you might stretch, you might get players to stick to their strengths. This is, again, just a personal opinion, so I'm taking off my coaching hat and I'm probably putting on my fan hat. You know, watching Scotland last night, we probably don't develop enough specialists because we try and bring everyone to the same level. You know, a group of 20 kids come in and we're working on passing and moving. A group of 20 kids come in and we're working on their weaker foot. Whereas maybe we just create an environment. Yes, we want to help their weaknesses a wee bit, but sometimes we do too much of that. We forget about their strengths. You know, if we're playing Scoreboard Soccer and a player's strength is dropping deep, getting the ball on the half turn and driving the play forward, I may be just praising that and sticking to their strengths. And that's where we might get a Phil Foden or a Leo Messi or whatever, because, listen, that's what you do in the game. Praise, praise, praise. Keep doing it. So, again, I'm going off on a tangent. And I know I'm guilty of that, you know, but I do sometimes worry if Messi came through in Scotland, people would be spending too much time working on his right foot and not enough time working on the fact they can score 700 goals. You know, so we can praise what they can do instead of maybe always looking for what they can't do. So anyway, an environment where we praise. First and foremost, these are my values. This is what I stick to. If you're someone who thinks football should always be fun, best part of the players' weeks, we don't know what they're going through at school, at jobs, at college, at uni, personal life. Scoreboard Soccer, in my experience, it brings a lot of smiles, enthusiasm for the game, develops a love for the game. We let them play. So I think it ticks that box, to be honest. I'm massive on developing the person. So yes, I praise passing, dribbling, shooting, but I'm so often praising resilience, communication, teamwork, sportsmanship, friendship. You know, I'm really big on that, trying to develop the person. My values all boil down to, you know, I would love to develop the next Messi or Ronaldo, but I think I keep at my core, I want to develop a colleague. I always think about the kids or the younger players. Would I want to sit across from them in an office one day? And to be fair, I think that's put me in good stead. I do get nice feedback on my coaching, and now it's my full-time job, and it's led me on to better things, just putting the person at the front. But again, I think that ties into, if you put this before this, you know, you'll get this for them. So guys, that's my kind of almost my final slide. You'll be glad to know, if no one's understood my accent, this has been a real big waste of time, but hopefully you've taken something from it. Scoreboard Soccer, great fun. You can develop the transferable skills, you can develop the player. Another thing on just developing the person is giving them player autonomy. Some of the best scoreboards that I've seen, the kids have came up with, or the players have came up with, whatever your groups are. And if they come up with it and they design it and they come to practice and they ask for it, they're going to give you so much. So I maybe won't show too many of these, but you know, one kid's saying, can I bring along my Snakes and Ladders board game? Now listen, Snakes and Ladders isn't going to make them a better footballer, but if they work really hard on the pitch because they want to go and roll a dice and get their team's counter further up the board, if that's what motivates them to work hard and display all these positive behaviours, I'm all for it. You know, egg and spoon race, similar. And I don't mind telling you, you know, this particular group here, I think it's this group, no, actually it might be another group of girls, you couldn't get them to engage in a games-based approach. You know, you put them in a game of 3v3, 4v4, 5v5, there was a lot of chat, there wasn't much engagement, there was a lot of complaining. If you say to them, right guys, it's 5v5, and when you do something really good, maybe something we've been working on, right, go over to the egg and spoon race. Again, the kids came up with this. It's 1 point if you go around with the egg and spoon and you don't drop it. It's 5 points if you do it with the ball at your feet. So some of the scoreboards might sound a bit daft, but listen, kids love board games, kids love football. You put them together, and I'm putting myself out there on these webinars to say, give it a wee try. This might be something to this. Really enjoying it. One of the kids at one of the programs when we came out of lockdown in September came up with one. I just never come up with this. It was called Hangman. So it's like, you know, Craig's team have a mannequin at the side of his goal. My team have a mannequin at the side of my goal. There's a hat, a scarf, a pair of sunglasses, a goalie gloves, and a goalie jersey. And it was the first one to dress the other team's mannequin. So every time we scored, we went over and we put another item on it. And, you know, it was like the World Cup final. You know, they were just so desperate to go over and put a pair of sunglasses on a mannequin. So, yeah, some of them are a little bit daft, but if you let the players pick the teams, name the game, design the scoreboard, change the teams if they think they're uneven, you get so much from them by engaging them in the process, which comes all the way back to the first thing we spoke about. Guys, I'm just about to stop my share. Obviously happy to take any questions. I know Craig will kind of facilitate that. But if you go out and you try Scoreboard Soccer, or you want a few more ideas, or you want feedback, show me some clips of your players doing it. That's been really nice to receive that kind of last week when Scotland started to go back to training, and I know England is today. I'm on social media, hashtag Scoreboard Soccer. I'd love to get some feedback on the presentation and the content, which I'm happy to share. And thanks so much for your time and listening.